What we know today is that mercury is one of the most deleterious metals, heavy metals you can find in the body. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease in this country, chronic fatigue syndrome, irritated bowel syndrome, Crohn's disease. I'm Karen von Merwald-Guevara. I am a medical doctor trained in Germany and France. And today I live in the United States. I work under energy medicine, which means I'm using my hands, my whole body to process somebody else's energies and to give an accurate reading of what's going on in the body. Though I've left Western medicine behind, I really value what I learned in those years and in the practical work that I did with patients back in the hospitals. I like to see blood tests. I like to see challenge tests to determine toxicity in the body. I like to see frequency assessments of the body, which is rather part of the natural medical field. During the years that I worked hands-on, I realized so much about the biochemistry in the body, about the tissues, about the organ functioning, and the realization too of how much our ailments today have to do with the toxicity we've been exposed to for generations now. As a Western medical doctor, I look at the body, I look at what does work and what doesn't work, and I gather all my symptoms together. I look into my DSM-4, whatever paper, and I come up, oh, these are the symptoms, so this is the disease. It doesn't tell you anything about the pathological functioning and how the body gets to have these symptoms. I've come to bridge the worlds because I really had to understand that the knowledge I had acquired while studying medicine and working in Western medicine is really substantial to what I do today. In Western medicine, we try to manipulate the symptoms. We try to remediate what doesn't work by putting chemicals into the body that may hit the certain spot there, right in the brain, for example, like DOPA in Parkinson, but we do not get to the actual cause and the core of the problem. You can pretty much bet that in all chronic diseases, the heavy metals kind of prepare the grounds environment on which all other infections or immunological disorders dwell. The problem is that you cannot address the different metals one by the other. It's really about starting with the mercury first, and things will follow. Inflammations, infections will flare up, but need to be addressed too. At the same time that detoxification has to be continued. So why is mercury so deleterious? You need to understand that mercury is a lipophilic element. It binds to the nervous tissue. It binds to the fatty tissue in the body. The brain is 60% that. So what it does, it destabilizes the cell membranes. It's like living in a house that has rubber walls. What it does too, it breaks down the cell-cell communication, so it interrupts the communication between cells that is essential for life. So you send mercury in, it's like the SAS, it's like the Marines, it's like the special forces. They go in, they take down the telegraph masts, they take out the railways, they cut down electric cables. That kind of an understanding, it's like warfare in your body. And it opens the doors for all the other troops to march in and take apart what should be functioning. And you end up with non-functional tissue. How do you get the mercury? Well, number one is, in my opinion, dental fillings, silver fillings, amalgam fillings, however you call it. So every so often I get emails or a phone call from people that have found me on the internet with questions about how I could help them with their Parkinson's, with MS, with ALS, all other chronic diseases. And my first response is always, I'd be very happy to help you, but the first thing that you need to take care of wherever you are is try to find a biodentist, a dentist who's knowledgeable in the proper removal of mercury, and have your fillings taken out. And have them removed in a proper way where a certain protocol is followed. And that protocol includes a rubber dam that is put in your mouth that leaves the one tooth or the teeth that need to be treated that day stick out. You need to have an oxygen mask put on your nose. And make sure that while you go through that procedure, you're covered with natural chelators like chlorella, cilantro, bear's garlic, substances that help taking the mercury out of the body by binding it and eliminating it the natural way, which is the intestines. To monitor the detox and kind of set up the best nutritional backup in order to help the heavy metals, the toxins, to leave the body, I cooperate with a naturopathic medical doctor, that's Daniela Hutirova in Cottonwood, who works with Asura technology, that's technology based on Russian inventions from the 50s. It's a frequency measuring device that can measure all the frequencies in your body and from there actually develop customized homeopathic drops to facilitate the process, because sometimes the nutrients we need, we even can't take them up because we have resistance towards those nutritional elements. So if you have a suspicion of heavy metal intoxication, if you already have even neurological problems, just tingling in your arms, irritability, sleep issues, sleep disturbance, sleep apnea even, if you have issues that may lead to a suspicion of Parkinson, of ALS, of MS, don't hesitate, look for a knowledgeable naturopathic doctor. Try to find out what your toxic load is at this point. Try to find somebody who would do a urine challenge test with you, who would be open to do the necessary stool tests. This mercury is part of a lot of very complex, even emotional problems. Like I said before, irritability, mood swings, anger outbreaks without you even having a clue where it hits you from. So since I've mentioned the detox protocol, I'd like to send one thing up front. It is to say that you need to take care of your silver fillings first of all before you start detox. People have a hard time eliminating the mercury via natural ways because they've been constipated forever. They've had troubles with the nutrients to absorb them because of a lack of enzymes, etc. So one thing that we put in place, part of our protocol, is coffee enemas. It's an old approach. Gerson described it in the Gerson method in the 1920s and 30s when he worked at the university clinic in Munich, his first protocol for the healing of lupus of the skin. What it does is it activates the gut lining. It kind of helps the gallbladder to excrete the bile and does the same to the liver. So it opens up the pipes that we need to have running and free to eventually get the mercury out of the body. So a major obstacle for proper detoxification is the lack of hydration. People are dehydrated these days. You can drink as much as you want. It's not the water that you bring into the body. It's the lack of salts and proper minerals in your body, and partially because they've been replaced by those toxins, heavy metals, etc. So part of it is IV therapy, part of it is cell salts, Schussler, homeopathic cell salts, to rebalance the proper mineral content in the body and help the water to actually get into the cells. To understand that, it's like the liver is the organ of detoxification. The gallbladder stores the bile, which is the liquid that kind of pulls it out into the gut, into the intestines, and in the end evacuates. The liver kind of takes in the lymph. The lymph is the liquid that runs in the lymphatic system, lymphatic vessels. It needs to be drained into the liver. If the liver is maxed out, you have a backup. That backup affects the heart. It affects the lymph system throughout the whole body. The intake of fats, intake of our nutrition, we take in a lot of neurotoxins, heavy metals all the way up front, chemical toxicity, other toxins that love fatty tissue just as well. And the affinity of mercury to the lipophilic tissue plays itself out not only in the nervous tissue in the brain, but by its love for the glandular tissue, because that is fatty tissue too. So all the glands that are sort of in the midline of the body. Let's say the pancreas, the thymus, the thyroid, the hypothalamus, pituitary, pineal gland. All this is part of the ANS. And what these neurotoxins do is they glue themselves to those tissues and take their functioning down. And the adrenals are affected by mercury and by other neurotoxins. But most of all the heart, because the way we're designed, we have the major drainage of lymph from the lower extremities, from the gut, into what we call the cisterna chyli, a collecting vessel, like right below the umbilical cord, that drains via a very long and thin pipe, the ductus thoracicus, behind the sternocleidocostal angle into the right atrium, the right heart. So if this is backed up, then you have a direct drainage of toxic liquid into the heart and back up into the pericardium, and you can feel it on the heart. It's part of how a heart attack comes about. I can feel it with my hands, kind of take my body to take these imprints. Is a physical phenomenon. It's a capacity to interface with the body and feel what is in the person in your own body. And then to see how that oftentimes leads to natural shut-offs, where the body just tries at all means to survive and lock that toxicity into pockets in the body, which means that you will find the body in the end torqued and twisted in order to hold those pockets at bay. Okay, so understanding that, it is clear that even emotional diseases, or so-called psychiatric diseases even, have to do with stored heavy metals and toxins in our system. Every time you have an emotional trauma, you create another toxic cyst where you actually store physical toxins. So it's intricately interwoven. There's no separation really between the emotional and the physical. So when I work, what I observe and what I pay attention to is the tracking of toxicity in the body. Knowing which organs have stored the most, which organs and how they're functioning. The pancreas. The pancreas produces enzymes like lipase, amylase, and those are needed to break down properly the nutrients that we get in our food. So if the pancreas too is, occupied by heavy metals and can't function properly, then even the natural chelation has problems to get into the system and kind of work its way through the body. Thyroid is kind of tied in with the adrenals. So if you have health issues, first thing is your adrenals are taxed. The adrenals are the powerhouse of the body. They're right above the kidneys. They're tied in with proper magnesium content in the body. Again, minerals. The same is valid for the thyroid. The thyroid is tied in with iodine, as everybody knows. Iodine is a halogenic compound. There's other halogenic compounds that are smaller and have a higher affinity. So they'll push the iodine out or make sure that they sit in the seats where the iodine belongs. And we're overexposed these days to these other halogenic compounds, which are fluoride, chlorine, bromide. Our protocol for detoxification is to actually give back to the organism what it lacks in order to push out those halogenic compounds or heavy metals that are not supposed to be in there, in those slots. For people who have been on a vegetarian or even vegan diet for long, we know that the presence of amino acids is really crucial to prevent reuptake of mercury from the gut back into the system. So make sure that your nutrition way before that mercury removal is up to par, that you provide all essential amino acids to your body. Where I want you to understand what's going on, but please be careful. Don't go out there, do it on your own. Some people are so-called allergic to iodine. In my opinion, what it does though is it launches a detox process that is uncontrolled. So please make sure you can listen to this, but don't just go out and try things out yourself. Make sure you work with people that can monitor, that can help you through the detox process. Okay. I've unfortunately seen the consequences of improper mercury removal. Older friend of mine who already had issues with adrenal fatigue called me in March and said, Karen, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm falling apart. I had to get a catheter. I'm completely constipated. My brain is falling apart. What is going on? And I asked him on the phone. I kind of went back over to what did he do that he got there, and he told me that 2 months before he had seen a dentist because he had heard of the issue of having your fillings removed, and that dentist did not follow any particular protocol. He just drilled the mercury dry out, went into the fillings, drilled them dry, and that mercury silver mix just glued itself completely into the nervous tissue. Okay, another issue I want to address is the structural implications, like your body posture and structure that gets aggravated by heavy metals. And by heavy metals and other neurotoxins. Like I mentioned before, it leads to a drying out of the body. Well, imagine you already have an offset of your spine. Your sacrum is not in alignment with the pelvic bone. Consequently, you've lost alignment of C1, C2. You already have this. Well, imagine you dry out. You get more and more into this contraction. And that is what we find in Parkinson. This is what we find with MS patients. This is what we find with other neurological problems that are so-called central, tied in with the brain. Because what you have is you have the impact on the jugular vein of the drainage from blood, from the brain back into the body, that is definitely aggravated the more the structure changes. Even though I had my hands on the body of the patient, I was able to move things unless the patient wouldn't change his nutritional intake, it wouldn't change the toxic load, although you detox through the bodywork alone. To really get somewhere and to really recover quickly, to accelerate that process, is the synergy of bodywork, of detox, of right nutritional intake, looking into the right minerals in your body. If your spine has issues to get set off, like vertebrae losing alignment, etc., there's not just chiropractic help or bodyworker restructuring help to set that back in place. Oftentimes it is actually the body signaling that specific minerals are missing. And that's pretty accurate by vertebra, what minerals actually are not in the right amount in the body. It's not just the mineral intake that will help reset the spine, it's the help of the body worker, but have it really stay in place, both sides have to be taken care of, which means the right mineral load and the right body work. And to have this documented and followed with Western medical tools or naturopathic tools, we can create the best protocol for the patient. So if you are a patient, if you are somebody who's suffering from a chronic disease, try to understand what's going on in your body. Please take that information to a doctor. Find somebody who is willing to step back and look at the whole body. If your physician was watching this, try to do the same, like step back, look at the whole body. One organ is tied into the other. There's no such thing as just one failing organ or gland. And trying to correct this is like smacking the red light that's on and thinking that the problem is solved with that. If you're a dentist watching this, please make sure you know of and you apply the proper protocol for mercury removal. I've had friends, patients, call me in complete distress with a bladder block, with constipation, with the feeling that they're really dying because they went through mercury removal where there was no precautions taken. The dentist drilled in dry and created a complete overload of mercury in the body, breakdown of the autonomous nervous system. So the one element missing so far in this presentation is my work that comes into place when we move patients through detox, and that is the structural work, that is the capacity to realign the body so these shut-off toxic pockets can actually drain in a proper way. The nutritional intake has to change. Carbohydrates, grains, even rice, out. Go down vegetables, meat only. Structural alignment has to be re-established. And all that can only happen once you have taken care of your teeth. Mercury fillings do not only have the general consequences of mercury continuously leaking into your system, but local effects. They create toxic pockets right around here. And that isn't far from the brain. It affects the ganglion, the cell heaps, like that have to do with the autonomous nervous system. Ganglion cervicalis superior, media inferior, all these names right here. And they have a local effect on the thyroid. It just is local as much as it is generalized. The same is true for failed root canals, cavities. Any infection in and around the teeth affects your whole body. Every tooth is tied into a meridian. And then again, mercury does not only have the toxic effect on the tissue, but on your electric circuitry. It short circuits all metals in your mouth, short circuit the meridians. And as much as we can try hard in our structural work or acupuncture, all these therapies that approach your electrical system, we can't work against this. It'll shut it off over and over. For me, it's about integrative medicine, which means to get to the real core issues that create those symptoms. And that is why I love to work in a team where we apply all sorts of different approaches in this in order to get to that core of the problem. So if you consider getting pregnant, please consider that the mercury in your body is passed on to your child. And many forms of autism that we face today is inborn mercury poisoning. I've seen it. I just recalled 2 families who were so clear that down the line, every kid is worse, the last child of 5, severely autistic. I will think of another family, 3 children. The second, prematurely born, still okay, very taxed adrenals all her life. The third child, born prematurely, had to be in the incubator, lack of oxygen, severe CP, but definitely mercury poisoning. So please be aware of this, that many children today are born with a load of mercury already in their systems due to their mothers and probably grandmothers having an overload of mercury already. Most of us are really pioneering in this field. I've had my own personal experiences along the way. I'm a mother of 3 children. My oldest, when he was 7, 8, he had to get a filling. I just opted, because thinking it's baby teeth, you know, they're going to be out in a year or 2, opted for mercury filling. He had to get a space holder on the other side opposite to that tooth that was made from nickel, which creates galvanic currents in your mouth, kind of worsens the whole situation about the mercury. Every so often that I worked on him after that, I just thought, what the hell is wrong with his liver? The whole liver meridian shut down all the time, all the time. Now these teeth are out, the space holder is gone. He's clearing up, but I can see that his health took a toll from that. So please pay attention to that. Get your kids only ceramic fillings if there is cavities that need to be repaired. So if you as a mother have mercury fillings and you have an impression there's something wrong with your child, that it doesn't behave like other children his age, there's a lag in growth, etc., consider finding the right protocol by getting in touch with the people who do this type of chelation, of detoxification. Help your child. The brain is plastic. The brain can recover. The brain, and with it, the health of your child can be brought back. Make sure that your children have enough minerals in their food. Don't feed them processed foods. Stay away from Wonder Bread and white flour, sugar. It's like, go back to basics. Cook from scratch. Get the vegetables as they are. Get the fruits as they are. Your body, once it's well taken care of, once you feed the right nutrients and the right elements to detox, it can take care of itself. If your child nonetheless develops cavities, go look for a dentist that provides ceramic fillings. Don't go for the cheap mercury fillings, because you create all these health troubles in the long run in your child.